Dear students, we have to start from the same point. That is, we've already done number of points so far as this chapter is concerned. This is a historical chapter, so it is your moral responsibility to make timeline chart that will highlight the events in a very specific way. And you will be able to learn the things in a systematic way if you do the same. So my first request or instruction to you people is to design timeline for this particular chapter. So look at a quick recap of the same chapter, that is lesson 9, Indigo. Lesson 5, Indigo, we are going today. We are going to do it today. So let us look. So if we look at the micro or quick recap of the session, Mahatma Gandhi started the freedom struggle 1917. So Rajkumar Shukla was very fine personality. He wanted Gandhiji to visit Champaran because he wanted that the problem of peasants of that particular area must be solved. Students, just look at this point in a very sensitive way. What is the difference between farmer and peasant? So if we are using this word peasant, it means we are highlighting about small scale farmers or poor farmers. Very clear up to this particular point. The next point for the brief introduction or brief recap of this chapter is he moved from Calcutta to Patna, and then Mahatma Gandhi was in Muzaffarpur to get the details about the problem. And ultimately, yesterday we had studied about the arrangement of sharecroppers. That is, they wanted compensation after the introduction of fictitious indigo. So just look at the behavior of these people, it was very negative. Now let us start enthusiastically of the basic points of today. That is, you have to start from the end of page 49. Just look at it. So before that, make sure that you are with your textbook also and with notebook. You must write difficult word meaning simultaneously, and it's serious moral responsibility. Now let us look. So already we had done up to this particular point that Mahatma Gandhi used to believe a very strict quote, that is, thing is believing. So that is why was able to collect the facts why he had arrived in Champaran. First of all, he started collecting the facts. He had visited the secretary of British Landlord Association. Secretary told him that they could give no information to an outsider. We had studied it yesterday. So they had bluntly declared that they could never be able to give any information to an outsider. At that particular point, Gandhiji had announced that he was not an outsider. Just look at the next step of Gandhiji. Next, Gandhi called on the British Official Commission after her division in which the Champaran district lay. Just look at. Next step of Gandhiji was to consult the British Official Commissioner of Tirhut. So dear students, just what do you mean by Tirhut division? You should be very clear about that. So West Champaran, East Champaran, all that particular area was under Tirhut division. So I think you are very clear about this particular point. So the British Official Commissioner of the Tirhut division, in which the Champaran district lay, the commissioner, Gandhi reports, proceeded to visit me and advised me forthwith to leave Tirhut. Secondly, he considered his moral responsibility to consult the British Official Commissioner of Tirhut division, but was not able to get proper response from that particular fellow. Gandhiji highlighted that particular point. Gandhiji had reported that that fellow proceeded to bully. What is bully? You should be able to understand in a very systematic way. While we just take violent action against anybody, while we treat anybody in a negative way. So that fellow had treated Gandhiji in a worst way and advised Gandhiji to leave that particular area immediately. He wanted Gandhiji to leave Champaran so that he could be able to get the comfortable zone for British people. I think very clear up to this particular point. Now look at the next paragraph. Gandhiji didn't leave. Already told you that Gandhiji was very hard personality. He was really a practical person, so that is why he had not followed the orders of that person, that is British official commissioner of Gharaunda. He had not followed that. Instead, he proceeded to Motihari. The contrary, he moved to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. Several lawyers accompanied him. Number of lawyers were with that particular fellow. At the railway station, a vast multitude greeted Gandhi. While he had reached the railway station, a vast multitude means crowd, large number of people, greeted means welcomed. I think very clear up to this particular point. While he had reached Motihari, number of people were there to welcome Gandhiji. He went to house and using it as a headquarters, continued his investigation. He had gone to house and he had used that particular house as his headquarters and had continued his investigations. I think very clear about this particular word investigations. He wanted to search out everything about that problem, that is the problem of sharecroppers of Champaran. So he wanted to get information in a very fine way. So a report came in that a peasant had been maltreated in a nearby village. What was there, which was highlighting that a small farmer had been misbehaved in a nearby village. Maltreated means while somebody is misbehaved or treated in a worst way. Gandhi decided to go and see. The next morning, he started out on the back of an elephant. So Gandhi decided to move to that particular place. And the morning, that is next morning, he moved on the back of an elephant. Very clear, there is no doubt in that. He had not proceeded far when the police superintendent's messenger overtook him and ordered him to return to town. While he just started to move over that particular area, what happened? Just look at the police superintendent's messenger overtook him and ordered him to return to town. So, are able to understand this particular point in a very sincere way. While he was about to move that particular place where the farmer was misbehaved, so he was just overtook by the police superintendent's messenger, and that messenger had ordered Gandhiji to return to the town in his carriage. Carriage, I think you are very clear, that is vehicle or car. So Gandhi complied. Gandhiji was agreed on that particular point. It means agreed. Note down the word, serious students. The messenger drove Gandhi home, where he served him with an official notice to quit Champaran immediately. Particular messenger drove Gandhi home. Able to understand this point, it's very easy. Messenger had driven Mahatma Gandhi to his home, where he served him with an official notice to quit Champaran immediately. So, messenger had just given him an official notice to Mahatma Gandhi to leave that particular place immediately. That notice was with the words which were highlighting that Mahatma Gandhi must leave the place without any wait, immediately, instantly. Gandhi signed a receipt for the notice and wrote on it that he would disobey the order. So Gandhiji had received that particular notice and signed that particular, uh, he had signed the paper while he had received that notice, and he had written on the same paper that he would not follow the order. He was able to look at the point in a very sincere way. It highlighted that he would not be able to follow this particular notice. I think very clear, had rejected the instruction of police at that particular moment. So I think very clear, he had refused to leave that particular place because he was in Champaran with a purpose. And what was the purpose? You are very crystal clear about that. He wanted to sort out the problem of sharecropper. He wanted to sort out the dispute, Indigo dispute of Indian people. He wanted to make peasants of Champaran in a comfortable zone. He wanted to do positive. He was there for social work, so that is why he had written bluntly that he would disobey that particular order. So now just look at the outcome of that particular rejection. In consequence, just look at, should be able to look at this particular point. In consequence, you are able to understand, as a result, Gandhi received a summons to appear in the court the next day. What had happened? Just look at the next episode. Gandhiji had received summons, the summons court order, to just appear in the court the next day. Then you are able to look at the consequence of the rejection of Gandhiji, because he had rejected that particular point of living Champaran in a blunt way. So that is why it was just called in the court the next day for explanation. It's very clear, there is no doubt in that, no doubt the meaning of summons, it means court order. All night Gandhi remained away. At this particular stage, Gandhi became very upset, because he felt very sad. Due to sadness and prestige, he became very upset. So that is why he couldn't sleep that night. He telegraphed Rajendra Prasad to come from Bihar with influential friends. Sent a telegram to Rajendra Prasad to just come from Bihar with influential friends. Influential means the persons with power and reputation. He sent instructions to the ashram. Also sent instruction to his ashram. Note down this particular point, what type of instructions he had sent, because he was not sure that he would be free after that particular rejection. He was no doubt that at any time he could be in prison. So that is why he had sent instructions to his ashram, highlighting each and every point so that the ashram must run in a proper order, because he was not sure that he would be free anymore. So that is why he had sent instructions to the ashram. He wired a full report to the viceroy. Just wired, again it means sent a telegram, highlighting full report to the viceroy. Viceroy, I think you are able to understand this particular, I think, position very, in a very fine order. Viceroy, representative of king, French word. I think very clear up to this particular point. There is no doubt in that. Morning found the town of Motihari black with peasants. So next morning, number of farmers were there, number of peasants were there in Motihari. So I think very clear up to this particular point. Next morning, number of people, number of peasants visited or come to that particular town, which was the capital, which is the capital of Champaran. And Moti Hari was black with peasants. Why these words are used? So if we look at the deep meaning of this word, skin color of peasants of that particular area was black. So that is why this particular these three words are highlighted. Moti Hari was black with peasants. They didn't know Gandhi's record in South Africa. They were not aware of the Gandhi's record of South Africa. They had merely heard that a Mahatma who wanted to help them was in trouble with the authorities. So they had merely you are able to understand, it's a very easy word. They had merely heard that one Mahatma, Mahatma, you are able to understand this term Mahatma. Very fine personality who came to help them was in trouble. Was there to help those peasants, was in trouble with the British authorities. Their spontaneous demonstration in thousands around the courthouse was the beginning of the liberation from the fear of British. Just look at this particular line, this spontaneous demonstration. They were highlighting their demonstration. They were there in crowd to highlight that particular point. If we look at this word spontaneous, you have to look at this suddenly. Have to look at this particular point in a very sincere way. Demonstration is collection of the farmers or peasants were there immediately. They were showing their bravery in thousands and thousands. It means thousands and thousands of peasants were there. It means a big crowd of peasants was there around the courthouse. Around the courthouse, they are able to look at the things nearby the courthouse, and was the beginning of the liberation from the fear of the British. That was the beginning. That was a new beginning, basically, of their freedom from the fear of the British people. Earlier, they used to afraid British authorities, and at that time, they were highlighting their demonstration, and it was giving a transparent pic that these people were least bothered about British authorities at that moment. So clear-cut pic was that they were saying goodbye to their fear. It's very clear, there is no doubt in that. Just look at the next paragraph. The officials felt powerless without Gandhi's cooperation. So at that moment, peasants were in very arrogant mood. So that is why they were giving very negative type of demonstrations. I think very clear their actions and reactions were very violent at that time. No doubt Gandhiji was strict believer of non-violence, but at that particular moment, peasants were seen in a worst mood. So that is why officials, here officials means British people, British authorities, they felt powerless, afraid of the peasants, while they had seen the negative or arrogant demonstration of the peasants, they felt that they could be zero at that moment. So that is why they were feeling powerless. And so that is why they wanted Gandhi's cooperation at that particular moment. 100% sure that they could not be successfully able to just create peace or satisfy these peasants if Mahatma Gandhi would not cooperate with them. I think very clear this is not help them regulate the crowd. He had helped them. He here means Mahatma Gandhi had helped them to control the crowd. He was polite and friendly. He was extremely polite and friendly. He was giving them concrete proof that their might, hitherto dreaded and unquestioned, could be challenged by India. You have to look at the meaning of this line in a very sincere way. Again, he Mahatma Gandhi was very polite and friendly. Mahatma Gandhi was giving them concrete here it is highlighting life proof, permanent proof that their might here means power of British people or power of British authorities. You have to hitherto, it means until now, dreaded and unquestioned. I think very clear. He was giving permanent proof that their power, they thought of dreaded and unquestioned. They had power, had created phobia in the minds of Indian farmers, Indian peasants. So that is why they were not ready to speak even a single word to say no to the British authorities. Now, Mahatma Gandhi wanted to say a very strong point that it could be challenged by Indians. Now, Indians ever ready to just oppose the British authorities because they were feeling confident with the support of Mahatma Gandhi. I think very tough line. You are able to understand the meaning of a third also. It means until now, concrete, permanent, unquestioned. They were not able to speak even a single word to oppose British people. The government was baffled. Just look at the next paragraph. The government was baffled. Baffled means confused. At a particular moment, the British authorities were confused. The prosecutor requested the judge to postpone the trial. Prosecutor, judge, requested the judge to postpone the trial. If you are able to understand this particular point, the high official of that particular court had just requested the judge to postpone the trial. Apparently, the authorities wished to consult their superiors. Apparently, clearly, transparently, without any doubt, the British authorities wanted to consult their superiors. Superiors here means high official. They were puzzled to look at that particular situation. They were puzzled to look at the negativity or the demonstration of the Indian peasants. So that is why they were very confused. And the prosecutor had requested judge to postpone the trial. Trial, you are able to understand. I think there is no doubt for the further explanation of this particular word. Apparently, clearly, the authorities wanted to just consult their superiors. Superior means their high authority, high official. There is no doubt. Now, just look at the next. Gandhi protested against the delay. They were delaying. So that is why Gandhi was against that particular delay. He read a statement pleading guilty. Gandhiji had read a statement pleading guilty. He had just read out the statement which was highlighting that he was very sorry for what he has done. Wanted to highlight that particular point that he was very upset to do that particular action of rejecting the order of the British authority. So now next step is he was involved. Now what was there in the statement? Just listen that particular point sincerely. He was involved, he told the court, in a conflict of duties. On the one hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker. On the other hand, to render the humanitarian and national service for which he had come. Basically, Mahatma Gandhi wanted to highlight that particular point that he would never in favor of negative. Never wanted to fight with authorities. He never wanted to do any negative. So that is why he had read a statement just highlighting that he was extremely sorry for what he had done. What had he done? He had rejected. He had rejected to leave that particular area, that is Champaran. I think very clear, there is no doubt. What was there in the statement? Just listen the thing. He was involved. Told that he was involved, he told the court, in a conflict of duties. He was really involved in the conflict of duties. What is conflict of duties? While the person has to look at multi-duties. Multi means two or more. And we are able to highlight that particular point, that conflict of duties are there. So he wanted to highlight two major obligations. What? Just listen. Wanted to highlight that on one hand, he never wanted to set a bad example as a lawbreaker. You are very clear about this particular point, that lawmakers can never ever be lawbreakers. Gandhi was a very fine advocate or lawyer, you are able to understand. So that is why he wanted to highlight a very fine point, that he never wanted to just break the law, never wanted to be a lawbreaker. And on the other hand, the other side, which was more important, to render the humanitarian and national service. And the second major responsibility on the shoulders of Gandhiji, he wanted to highlight that particular point, that it was my serious responsibility to just listen the problems of Champaran peasants, to sort out the dispute, Indigo dispute of that area. Just listen the things, to render the humanitarian and national service, you are able to understand. Humanitarian means the service which we do for the welfare of humanity, and national service we do for the rectification of the negativity of our nation. Gandhiji had highlighted 2 points. That one point was, he never wanted to be lawbreakers by rejecting that order of leaving Champaran. So second point, which was the more important for Gandhiji, that was never to be away from humanity. So that is why he had to take that harsh step. Declared, just read the statement. It is regarded the order to leave. Highlighted that, so that is why he had not left that particular area, that is Champaran. Not for the want of respect for lawful authority, but in obedience to the higher law of authority, being the voice of conscience, he asked the penalty due. Just look at the beauty of this sentence. This sentence is really beautiful. He never wanted any respect. He never wanted to just break any law. He never wanted to disregard any order or disrespect any order. He had not left that particular place, not for the want of respect for lawful authority, but he wanted to listen the basic sound or basic voice of his conscience. Conscience is inner soul. So that was more important for him. He wanted to highlight that particular point, that he had not left that particular place because he wanted to upgrade the society. He wanted to upgrade the situation. So he had not disobeyed any authority. And on the contrary, he had listened to the voice of his conscience. It was more important, and acted accordingly. And openly or bluntly he had asked that declare the penalty due. Penalty means fine. Wanted that he was ever ready to pay the fine for that. So I think you are very clear about this particular point. Move for the next. The magistrate announced that he would pronounce the sentence after a 2-hour recess and asked Gandhi to furnish bail for those 120 minutes. The magistrate had declared that he would just declare sentence, punishment after 120 minutes break. Recess here means break. And asked Gandhiji to punish bail for those 120 minutes. Yet asked Gandhiji to highlight the bail. But do you just note on the meaning of bail? Bail is sum of money. Just note it down. Sum of money to be deposited. Sum of money to be deposited for the release, for the temporary release of any accused person. Very clear up to this particular point. You are very clear about the meaning of bail. Well, it's just like a security. Some amount is to be deposited for the temporary release of accused person. So they demanded bail. I think very clear up to this particular point. Gandhi refused. Gandhiji had said no, that he could never ever be able to furnish bail. He had just declared. So judge released him without bail. So judge had just freed him for 120 minutes for 2 hours without any bail. I think very clear. When the court reconvened, the judge said he would not deliver the judgment for several days. Meanwhile, he allowed Gandhiji to remain at liberty. Reconvened, you have to write the meaning of that word, basically met again after a break. Well, the court met again after a break of 120 minutes. The judge announced that he would not deliver the judgment for several days. He delayed his judgment, was not ready to deliver the judgment or declare the judgment about the case of Mahatma Gandhi. Meanwhile, he allowed Gandhiji to remain at liberty. And during that particular time, till the final decision about the sentence of Mahatma Gandhi, Gandhiji was permitted to be free. I think very clear up to this particular point, there is no doubt in that. And time says that we must be able to look at the main points of today's lecture so that we should be able to close the lecture systematically. So dear students, you are very clear up to this particular point. We had started from page 49. So you are very clear about Motihari, Tirhut, and you have able to look at the point compiled. I think this is complied. This is a very fine word. And the basic summons. This is a very tough vocabulary for those who are not able to understand this particular word. Particular word is taken from law code. Now just look at. So if we, I think, sum up today's lecture, we are able to look at this particular point. That first point we have studied, that Gandhiji had inquired, a very strong inquiry. He had visited to British authorities, but nobody was able to give them answer in a proper way. And ultimately, Gandhiji was given the order to leave Champaran. Gandhiji was not ready to leave that particular place. He had rejected that particular order, and ultimately he was just called the court, and automatically he reached court. The judge was not able to give proper decision because big crowd was there to support Gandhiji, and British authorities were afraid of to look at that particular situation. So today's lecture also highlights this particular point, that British people were becoming weak day by day due to the support of Gandhiji for peasants of Champaran area, and Champaran peasants were becoming strong day by day. I think you are able to conclude this particular point in a very sincere way. Ultimately, even the judge had delayed that particular case, declared Gandhiji that he must be free for during that particular time till they would be able to give their proper decision. I think with this, time to close today's lecture. Any doubt, any query, you just write to ask at any moment. So we are just closing the lecture with a very fine quote. Just live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. So we shouldn't stop learning as learning never stops. We must be able to look at this particular quotation. So thank you. Thanks a lot.